Hi everyone. It has been like such a long time since I was able to sit down and film and edit a video. And I gave one update, just like a text update or like a post update that you can do on YouTube, like probably a month ago, just letting you know that I wasn't able to make videos at the time. And so today's video is kind of going to be an update on like where I've been, what I've been doing, what's been going on, and then kind of some things going forward. And then also I'm going to do an update on my project pan items and the eyeshadow palette project that I'm doing. So I'll put a timestamp down below if you want to skip the like life update and get right to the makeup. I'll put that timestamp below so that you can just skip ahead if you want. But if you want a quick update on where I've been, what I've been doing, then just keep watching. Okay, so obviously my background is different than what I normally have, and that is because for the past month and a half-ish, my husband and I have been basically living in hotels. And that's because in late January, a pipe burst in our condo. And it could have been worse than what it was. From our understanding, what happened is the like fire sprinkler system, that's the pipe that froze and burst, and it actually burst through the sprinkler that was onto our porch area. And so from the porch area, it then flooded into our apartment. So there was no wall damage other than them having to tear down that outside facing wall where the sprinkler pipe was going into so that they could get to the pipe. But there was no wall damage, luckily, like no major furniture damage either, because since it just flooded in from the porch, I would say there was maybe an inch of standing water. So like it didn't even reach above like the feet of our couch or anything. So we're very lucky in that regard. But they did have to rip up all the flooring in our condo, which we just had vinyl plank flooring, but it was throughout, and tear up and remove the carpet in our closets. So we live in like a 900 square foot condo, so the water did get into every single room and area. So the only floor they didn't have to remove and replace is the tile in our bathrooms. So that has just been a journey, and then just trying to work with and understand insurance has also been quite the struggle. So this is our first foray into an insurance claim that is this large of scale. I've only ever had very small like auto insurance claims before, and I've never had an issue or like a timing issue with those before. So this has just been kind of a frustrating and tedious process. I don't know if it's normal for things to take this long or if we just happen to get a not very responsive adjuster for our claim. I'm not really sure, but it took multiple weeks for him to look at and approve the estimate from the contractors to repair our space and put new floors in. So it just felt like we were living in this limbo for so many weeks. And then on top of that, my coverage, I do have decent home insurance coverage. So that is if you take anything from this video, look into your renter's insurance and your home insurance and make sure you have enough coverage if something were to actually happen to you, because when it does happen, like it can be very expensive. So because we had to live in a hotel, we were paying out of pocket for that, assuming we would get reimbursed, which we still will per everything I've looked up. But apparently there was also this company we could have been working with through our insurance that then just directly billed our hotel stays to our insurance, so we didn't need to be paying out of pocket. But that was not given to us by our adjuster until almost like 5 weeks into the process. So we spent thousands of dollars out of pocket on hotel. So we're working on getting that money back, and I also am working on trying to get money for the items that I claimed that were damaged. So things like my Chromebook were damaged, a couple of things that were on the floor. We had a couple of like cheaper pieces of furniture that are just made out of like the particle board. So like the bottoms of those are clearly, ruined, and we wouldn't want to keep that in our home. So just not really a ton, but like enough to where like I would like the money from my insurance to be able to buy those things again. So it's just been kind of a struggle. That happened, like I said, towards the end of January. So it's been like a month and a half at this point, and We should be moving back into our apartment this weekend, which would be, what is this, the first weekend? It's like the end of February, beginning of March. So I guess that's not too crazy in the grand scheme of things, but like still just taking a month and a half to get all of that approved and get the work done was just kind of, it just seemed a little prolonged in my opinion, but maybe that's normal. If you have any experience with this type of insurance situation, I would like to see your comments and let me know, am I just expecting too much too quickly, or is this just how it goes? I don't know. But regardless, it kind of helped put certain things in perspective. Not that they weren't already in perspective, but it just like really highlights certain things in your life when you have a disaster happen. And like I said, we are very lucky that like we do have good home insurance coverage. We were able to pay out of pocket to stay in a hotel. We stayed with family a couple times here and there. Our furniture wasn't fully damaged. Like we didn't lose everything we own. So in that sense, I know that like we are lucky. It could have been much worse. But it just put into perspective how, important your home is and to take care of it and try to do as many preventative things as possible. We live in a condo that has an HOA, and so the pipe that burst the fire sprinkler system is actually not the homeowner's responsibility to maintain, it's the HOA's. So that's kind of another lingering question that I have, and something that is important to try and understand and get answers on if you live in a community that has an HOA or a property management company that runs it. But then also, it just kind of made us think about, okay, when this is all done, we're going to have to keep living there, which is fine. I'm going to have to deal with a little bit of like PTSD of like just worrying that the same thing's going to happen again the next time it gets really cold. So that's something I'm going to have to work through mentally. But then also thinking about the future and potentially selling one day and moving on to a different home. And it's just really hard to do that right now in this economic climate. We are a dual income household, but we're not, we make enough to live, obviously, and live comfortably, but housing prices are just bananas right now where we live. I mean, minimum to stay anywhere like within the city limits, a house is going to cost anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000, and that's just insane to me. Like that's a huge down payment you'd want to be putting down to not have a crazy mortgage. But we also don't think it's financially smart to do something like that right now with our money because we just don't know what the future holds. Not to bring politics or anything into it, but we are at the beginning of a new presidential administration. They're trying to do all of these crazy changes and do things that are, taking services and resources away. So it's a complicated time, and probably not the best time to be making a big financial decision like that until we know kind of what the economy is going to do, what interest rates are going to do, and things like that. So I think we're going to just try and like hunker down for a little while, be even more conscientious of our spending. And I would like to do some kind of home projects that kind of build on top of the repairs that we've already had done, so that if the time comes and we see a window of opportunity as a good time to sell and buy something else, that our home would be definitely ready. So actually next week we're getting a new hot water heater put in. Ours is quite old, so we figured we'd go ahead and do that while we could. And then I think going forward, I might intersperse some new kinds of videos onto my channel, kind of more vlog style of doing some home projects. So let me know if that is something that you would be interested in seeing and having me film for you all. I think it could be something additional to add to my channel. Even though I am beauty and makeup and skincare focused, I also focus on using what you have and making good financial decisions in your purchasing habits. And so I think I can do the same thing with some home repair and home improvement projects as well. So that was a lot of an update, but like I said, things are moving forward. It's just been a really, really strange way to begin 2025, not on the best note, but gonna try and be positive going forward once we're moved back in and kind of work through the rest of our insurance claim. But that is that. So moving on, let's get into the project pan and eyeshadow usage updates. So just as a recap, I'm working on 5 makeup items in my project pan. once I finish one, I will roll it out and roll something else in, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the same type of product. So if I finish a lipstick, I don't have to roll in another lipstick. I can pick whatever I want to work on. And this year I changed my rules a little bit. There are certain things where the goal is not going to be to use it completely up. It might just be to hit pan. So with that being said, let's do the makeup items first. So let's start with my brow pencil. I have been using the Benefit Precisely My Brow. This was like a mini pencil and it's just a twist up. And there is so little of this left. It's crazy. But I really don't use a ton of product when I'm doing my brows. I also hate doing my brows. So this is where we are now. I think we've made some progress from last time, obviously, but I definitely think by the end of March, this will be done. And the shade of this is shade 3. So I think maybe it might be like a tad too dark for me. So that's also, I'm pretty light when I use it. So that's why it is still going, but also shows how long certain brow products can actually last. And I used this, I'm tracking my usage numbers this year instead of weighing everything because I wasn't really seeing a lot of progress when I weighed things last year. So I'm just gonna, we can compare like where it looks this way or the pan expansion on other products, and then I'm tracking my uses. So when I started using this and tracking it in January, I think I posted that video like early to mid-January, the introduction, and so this is the first update since then. So basically my January through February usage, I used this 23 times. So next, I was using in my Hourglass 6-pan palette. This is the Ambient Lighting Edit Sculpture palette. This is from a couple years ago. So there's 6 pans in here. I've been working on the bronzer. And I don't know if it's gonna be easy or hard to see the usage. I feel like when I do it this way, you can see that the dome is definitely flattened and we're getting flatter towards here. And if you look closely, there's definitely pan here and kind of coming towards the sides. And it's definitely flatter than the rest of the domes, as you can see. You can barely even see when I hold it up. So I've been using this pretty much every day as my powder bronzer, and it's a nice color and it like blends in really well. I've always enjoyed Hourglass powders, regardless if it's a blush bronzer or highlight or face powder. I also used this 23 times, January through February. So that is exciting. I'm hoping I can work through this palette this year. I don't know if I'll be able to finish everything. Blushes usually take me a minute, but I'm thinking I can definitely work through at least these 4. So I'm kind of gonna take it one by one, I think. So we're still gonna just keep working on the bronzer. Next, I'm using my face powder, my CoverGirl Clean Fresh face powder in the like translucent shade. And we definitely are seeing some progress. We can see the indentation of all the rings, and then we have some pan going. So compared to the intro, definitely making progress, slow but steady. I do feel like this powder is packed pretty tightly in here. And again, I don't use a ton of face powder. I just do like a little dab and I just kind of try to set like my T-zone area mostly. So I'm not using a ton every time, but I definitely feel like the layer is getting thinner and thinner, and then we're seeing the pan. And this I used 26 times, January through February. So pretty good. I definitely think I can get through this in the next like 2 months. Then we have the lip gloss that I was using, and it is the e.l.f. Plumping Gloss in Champagne Glam. I've made a ton of progress on this. I believe in the intro, I was at one of the S's in the word gloss up here, and now we're all the way down to the word lip. So I am really happy with that progress. I use this multiple times a day some days, and I take it to work and like put it on my desk during the day and just kind of reapply as needed. So it's definitely, we're making progress, and I think I could finish this in March. And it's also giving me more perspective on how I feel about plumping glosses. And I don't hate them, but I also don't love them. Like there are times if you put a little too much of this on, it is very sticky. But then also the plumping is almost a little too much for me. It's definitely less than a lot of other plumping glosses I've used, but it's one of those where once this is gone, I don't know if I would repurchase because I just don't know if I love the plumping feeling, honestly, at the end of the day. And this one I used 26 times as well, January through February. So that and the powder, sometimes I do apply these multiple times a day because I usually put both of them in my purse. So that is why those have slightly higher usage. And now for the fun part, I do have an empty, and it is my Tarte Cream Bronzer in the shade Breezy. They don't even make or sell this anymore. I believe I bought this like 2 years ago, maybe for like 20 bucks on sale at Sephora, but it is completely gone. And it took me 22 uses to completely use this up from the intro. So that is exciting. I'm glad to have something to put on my first, as my first item on my used up in 2025. I'm trying to do 25 in 2025. So that's just hitting goals or using things up in 2025. So that means we get to replace it with something. And I'm going to go ahead and replace it with another cream bronzer. And this is one of the older products in my collection, and it is my Chanel bronzer in the Soleil Tan de Chanel. This is the old packaging. That shows you how old it is. And my goal on this, if I can get the thing off, is just gonna be to hit pan. I have a dip going in the center a little bit, but I really wanna try and just hit pan on this. It would be a lot to try and use this completely up. And I do have other cream bronzers and bronzer products in my collection that I want to make sure that I use this year as well. So I just want to focus on hitting pan on this. So I'll try, and the lighting is not great. So you can kind of see there is a dip going a little bit in the center. And that's kind of usually where I end up swirling my brush, is in that center. So I think after some constant use, hopefully I'll hit pan. I think the bottom of the pan, it's hard to tell with this packaging. Like, it's not going to go all the way down to the bottom of this. It seems to be about halfway. So still a ways to go, but I would be happy to see pan on this eventually. So that is the update for my 5 Project Pan items. Finished one, moving a new one in, but we've still got 5 going. So now let's move on to the eyeshadow project. All right, so for the eyeshadows, I did an intro video of this back in January as well. So I'll link that below if you missed it and you want to see more of an explanation. But basically, I used a randomizer app and picked 5 eyeshadow shades from my collection, which happened to come from 5 different palettes. And so same as the Project Pan items, I'm tracking my usage and trying to hit pan on them. I did make a rule though that I think if I was using a shade and I felt like I just wasn't gonna hit pan like anytime soon. Some shadow pans are quite large, some are packed really fine, like really tightly, or if it was a color that just like really wasn't working for me on a day-to-day, then I would give myself 25 uses and then I could roll it out and roll something else in. But we're not gonna do that with any of them today, and sadly I have not hit pan yet on any of them, so we're gonna be keeping the 5 that are in here, but I will quickly go through them so you can try and see some of the progress that I have made on them. So the first one is a shade from the Alter Ego Sahara palette, and it is this shade Slate. It's this gray shade. So I definitely feel like you can see the usage that I've done on here. It's definitely looking a little rougher. You can see where I dip my brush in, and I just use that as like a crease shade. It's the first one I put in my crease, just to kind of lightly add that blending area. And I used this shade 14 times, January through February. So we're gonna keep that in. I don't know if I'm gonna hit pan. I kind of swirl my brush in it, so it's not like a very concentrated area, but maybe if I keep trying to be more concentrated, like dabbing instead of swirling, I could hit pan. So we'll see how I feel when I get to the 25 uses on that shade, if it's something that I want to keep working on or want to roll out. The next shade that I have been using is also a crease shade, and it is from the Milani Gilded Mini Palette. The name of the palette is Whiskey Business, and it is this second shade here, this more like orangey terracotta shade. And I feel like, again, you can barely see the shadow of like where the indentation is, where I did my brush in. This is one that I feel like is so tightly packed, and I have used this shade 18 times, January through February, and I just don't know the possibility of hitting pan on this anytime soon. So I don't know, it works really well as an everyday shade. So again, I will see when I hit the 25 uses how I feel about keeping to use this or moving something else in, but I might keep it in just because it is that crease shade that works well with a lot of different looks. So there is a possibility of hitting pan. I just don't know how fast it would happen. Then the third shade that I've been using that I have mostly used as an all over eyeshadow shade is from the Sigma New Mod palette, and it is the shade Glam. So it is this golden shade on the end. So you definitely can see my usage on there. It is a nice shimmer. It's what I have on my lids today. So that's what I've been using for that. And I have used this one 16 times, January through February. So I definitely think I can hit pan in this. It's just gonna take probably the next month because these shadows, the glitter, like shimmery shades, they are kind of tightly packed, and I did kind of start to experience a little bit of hard pan. So that's kind of why it looks like it's dug into a little bit, because there was a day where it was just completely hard. So I took the end of the brush and just kind of tried to like break through the hard pan. So it might take me a while, but I definitely like that I can see the usage progress on this. So we're just gonna keep going with that shade as a lid color. Then the fourth shade I've been using is from the Natasha Denona Mini Sunset palette, and it is the shade Halo. It is this lighter shade on the end, and this has been working really well as an inner corner highlight. So again, you can definitely see the usage on here of where I dip my brush in to use it for an inner corner. And again, kind of similar to that Sigma shade, I think there's possibility of hitting pan on this sooner rather than later. It's just kind of a more tightly packed shade, and I'm not using a ton of it every time since I'm just doing my inner corner. So we'll keep going on that, and hopefully I can hit pan on that in the next, I would think, like 2 to 3 months. But again, it's such an easy shade. You could also use this as a lid shade. I just haven't really done that most days, but I could start doing that to get some more use out of it. And yeah, it's just been a really nice shade to have that complements the other ones that I picked so far. And then the fifth shade is from my Urban Decay Naked Basics palette. This is the one I'm definitely the closest to hitting pan on. And it is the shade Lethal, this one. So I think that's pretty obvious. I've been using this as a liner, so that's why there's a really concentrated dip in there, because my liner brush, I just kind of tap in there and then use as a liner every day. So I definitely think at the next update, I will have pan on this, and then we'll be able to choose a new eyeshadow. So kind of bummed that I didn't hit pan on any of them in the first 2 months, but that was to be expected because I think all of these shades I pretty much had not really used a ton before rolling them in. So it's not like there was a lot of usage that kind of gave me a head start anyway. But that is the update for my Project Pan and my eyeshadow project. January through February, March, clean slate, hopefully on everything, living in my apartment again, keeping track of these products. And so I hope that you enjoyed, and leave me a comment below. Like I said earlier, anything about the first part of the video, any comments or advice you have on that would be really helpful. And then also, if you just want to share what you're most excited for spring. Spring is around the corner. I think that's helping me feel more optimistic. The weather's changing, the sun's coming out more, daylight savings is coming up, so that kind of always helps my mood a little bit. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Be sure that you like this video and hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that you're notified of all of my upcoming videos. I should be back to my regularly scheduled programming going forward. And so next week's video, I think definitely is going to have to be a Shop My Stash, because I have been using the same makeup that I did in my first Shop My Stash video this whole time. And that's great. I got a lot of usage out of those products, but I'm definitely ready to switch it up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye.